Hi everyone, my name is Danielle Nierenberg and I'm president of Food Tank. I'm very pleased to welcome you to Food Tank's webinar series. I'm incredibly excited about today's webinar with Michael Backer. Michael is the Director of Global Food Services at Google and leads their food program supporting all food service related activities and initiatives for Google's global community. Michael is a longtime friend of Food Tank and I'm really thrilled that he's with us today to share his expertise. His presentation will explore how we can feed 9 billion healthy people within planetary boundaries. The webinar will be recorded and posted on foodtank.com, and we hope you'll follow along and participate on Twitter using hashtag #foodtank. Please also submit your questions using the questions tab in your control panel, or you can email them to sarah@foodtank.com. Michael, it's such an honor to have you here today, and I'm really excited to hear your presentation. The floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Danielle. Very honored to be a speaker at your webinar series, and very excited about the topic as well. So the question today is, can we feed 9 billion healthy people within the planetary boundaries? My answer is absolutely yes, we can. And what I hope to share with you today is how Google Food is thinking about this question and the role it plays in answering that question. But no, I won't. I will not share with you all the things that Google might be thinking of or is not thinking about what the broader organization can do in this very specific area. It is much more a presentation about what Google Food as a team at Google is actually thinking about of what its contribution can be. But to frame it up, I want to give the audience an overview, a quick overview of our program. Then give you my 5 cents on how we might feed the 9 billion healthy people. And then I want to talk a little bit more about what our efforts are in this space. And what I want to actually articulate loud and clear as well is that we are just a player like many of you on the webinar today. There's still so much more we can do. There's still so much more to explore. So my presentations today is not about all the great things that we're doing. I'm sharing our efforts today with you as a source of inspiration. And then finally, I will share with you some key takeaways. But let me get started with a quick overview of Google Food. So Google Food is both a team as well as a program. Our team is responsible for nourishing the bodies and minds of all of those who work at Google offices around the world. So we're a global food and beverage organization operating now in over 55 countries. We work with 43 great catering partners like you have in the US, Guggenheimer, Restaurant Associates, or Bon Appetit. We run over 185 cafes, close to 900 micro kitchens, and we believe we serve over 100,000 meals in all those different venues around the world on a daily basis. A couple of pictures to show you the different venues we have. Our cafe in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. One of our cafes in Tel Aviv. Our coffee and tea lab in Mountain View, California, and one of our cafes, La Place, in New York. But it's not about the physical environment. It is not about ultimately the bells and the whistles. It is more about what we're trying to achieve. We are a mission-driven program. We absolutely want to inspire and to enable the Google community to make food choices and to enjoy food experiences that support them in being their best. We believe passionately that food has a tremendous impact on the health and well-being of an individual, both short as well as long-term. And as we're part of the broader Google family, we believe that we have an opportunity and a responsibility to make a much broader impact than just feeding the bodies and minds of those who work at Google. So we believe that we have an opportunity as well to contribute to answering questions like we're talking about today. But the core question for our team and our program is, How can we help people to be at their best today, tomorrow, and over the long haul through food experiences? And as we're a mission as well as a vision-driven team, the question of how might we feed 9 billion healthy people is definitely a question that is on our minds. But it's such a broad and challenging question because it's also interconnected. And when you talk about feeding and fueling 9 billion people, it's not just about those 9 billion people, because those 9 billion people have pets, they have farm animals, they drive cars. So it's about actually the overall ecosystem that needs to be fed and fueled, and that makes it significantly more complex. In addition to that, it is not one group of individuals. It is basically 9 billion individuals with different needs. And you're dealing with issues around both malnutrition and obesity. A great organization I'm affiliated with is the Eat Forum in Stockholm that is really thinking through this question as well. And they have clearly articulated that when you think about the future of food, it is about the intersection of food, health, and sustainability. So if you ask me the question, how might we feed the 9 billion people? It is about affecting change in the supply side, the demand side, and then in the policy ecosystem. But let me start briefly with the supply side. It is about enhancing, evolving, changing, and increasing the overall food production and distribution system. There's so much that can be done from both the quality and quantity of food that is being produced. We need to figure out ways on how to produce more food overall within the available footprint, thinking through more efficient production methods, thinking about different products, algae, kelp, thinking through should we allocate a larger share of the available food for human consumption and potentially less for both animal feed and for fuel. It is about the right nutrient density, and there's so much more. But I really believe that changes will take place on the supply side that will help us to feed the 9 billion people by 2050. It's not just the supply side where we'll see change, it is on the demand side as well. We have to figure out ways to influence and adjust existing as well as future consumption patterns and diets. If you think about the emerging middle class, whether that will be in India, in China, those middle classes will potentially take over some of our dietary patterns we now have in the West and in the US. That would be incredibly scary. So the question is, how can we both not get them there where we are at as of today, and at the same time, how can we influence and change consumption patterns in the West? We have to think through income accessibility and food availability opportunities. And then there are many, many very clear geographical differences. One approach will not work for all. There is a different approach or a different set of approaches needed in the West, India, China, and Africa. And we have to think through as well, who will users ultimately trust to help them to make better food choices going forward, or different food choices in order to have enough food available for all of us by 2050. Thinking through the supply side, thinking through the demand side, we have to think through as well, how can actually we waste less in both the overall supply side, from production to distribution to retail, as well as how can we waste less on the consumer side. The number of 40% of our food produced gets wasted is a clear indication of how much work is still left to be done. But at the same time, it's incredibly encouraging that if we would only reduce it 40%, so much more food will be available for the ever-growing world population. We have to think through as well food policy changes. I think it's time, and I totally support Danielle in her quest for this as well, to get a national food policy in the US. We need national or regional food policies in Europe, in China, and different parts of the world. And I think we can actually answer the question how to feed the 9 billion people by working better together with more partners. This does not work with a silo approach. This is not about my approach being better than yours. It is about how can we help each other in order to make a bigger impact in the demand side, the supply side, and on the policy side. Let me now move into what we're doing as a Google Food team. So our role is truly to be an operator and a support organization for our internal food services operators around the world. And our program is being used as well as a platform for community. We want to enable our community, the Googlers who we serve on a daily basis, and we want to contribute to broader questions like we're talking about today. And the core focus for us is to engage, enable, and inspire our workforce to make a difference. Some of our core beliefs is that it is better to launch and iterate and just to start acting today.
Blunt force trauma to the wrist.
It is about focusing on the opportunities, both big and small. It is about actually working on this with a holistic approach. It is about this intersection of food, health, and sustainability. There is a core belief that there is not one magical solution. It will require a lot of different solutions being implemented concurrently. And we have a core belief as well that you and we can make and have a much bigger impact than you think. So if you think about our role, it is about the what we're doing, the how we're doing it, as well as with whom. So the how, to start with, we really believe that we should act as a responsible business partner, and more about that shortly. It is about building upon existing and new partnerships that Google Food or Google has with both internal partners as well as with partners like FoodTank. It is about conducting and supporting research that is happening in this very specific arena. And we believe as well that we can make an impact by demonstrating and showcasing of what can be done. And we're doing this with our catering partners, Bon Appetit, the Guggenheimers, as well as their suppliers. We're doing it with our users, because the more we can get our users engaged, the broader our reach will be. But it really starts with our core belief that we should be a responsible business. And we absolutely believe in the philosophy, well articulated by Carol Sanford, a former professor of business at San Jose University. Her notion is that in whatever you do, you have to think through the impact that you make on the 5 key stakeholders: your users, the co-creators, Earth, community and society, as well as the investors. So in whatever decisions we make as a food team, we have to think through what the impact is of those decisions on those 5 key stakeholders. We're thinking through what we can do with and building upon the great work being done by partners like Bon Appetit, who operates many of our venues on the West Coast, or a great company like Guggenheimer. We work very closely as well with a variety of great partners around the world. FoodTank, the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, with their Menus of Change platform in conjunction with the Harvard School of Public Health, the Stockholm Food Forum, or Action Against Hunger. So I spoke briefly with you about the how and with whom. Now a little bit more about the what. So how can we make a difference, or how can we make a contribution to having enough food in 2050 for 9 billion people? One of the elements that needs to happen is changing the dietary consumption patterns of our users. And the way we're going about that is by being actually a strong believer of the use of behavioral economics or behavioral sciences. The Cornell Food and Brand Lab, under the leadership of Brian Wansink, is actually a great partner for us in that. He is providing us with great insights on how to affect dietary change by just changing the context in which you actually make food available. We absolutely believe that behavioral economics is, at least in our environment, one of the biggest drivers of change. On the supply side, we're very focused on responsible procurement, changes in products and production, resource utilization, optimization, and waste reduction, and thinking through how can we both engage and enable our catering partners to act upon our insights. So at the core of how we can contribute to feeding 9 billion people by 2050 is by really thinking through how can we move our population to a balanced plant-centric diet. And with that, you get really the question of how can you increase the appeal of plant-based proteins. So we believe that it's not about taking good stuff away from our users, but it's about making the alternative more desirable, more craveable, just better. And we're doing that in actually close cooperation with the Culinary Institute of America and their Menus of Change platform. The CIA, together with the Harvard School of Public Health, has articulated 24 Menus of Change principles. And by actually acting upon those 24 principles, you're going to reduce the environmental footprint of the food you make available in your environment on a daily basis. We believe as well in actually working with other partners like the Jamie Oliver Food Foundation and the Food Revolution Day in actually inspiring individuals, our users, to get involved with food. Because with that, you're going to get the second broad focus area for our team and our program to answer the broader question. It is about enablement. How can we enable our users to make better food choices? And it's really about this saying of if you feed a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So it's about actually providing or giving Googlers, our users, the life skills to make great food choices, not just at work, but at home and on the go as well. So with that notion, we have started to build out and operate teaching kitchens in our global portfolio, because we believe there's an opportunity to provide more life skills to our population around food, and that is food literacy, culinary skills, and just instilling a broader passion for food. And the outcome of that is that people are going to be more thoughtful in making the food choices that they should make. At the same time, going back to our belief in behavioral economics, it is about the changes that we can make in what we offer and how in our environment that will help us as well to move our population to a more balanced plant-centric diet. And what you see over here on this picture is actually one of our micro kitchens where we are making fruit the default choice. 5 fruit options are available in all our micro kitchens around the world. Packaged snacks, which can be great treats as well, are available too, but they're not as highly visible as fruits, as you can see on the slide over here. And we really believe that by making the best choice the easiest choice, you can really get people to affect change without them really thinking about it. And that going back to, in 2050, the world's population, our population, needs to have moved to a more balanced plant-centric diet because there won't be enough land and feed available to feed the animals as well that we can subsequently consume. So to get there, we need to figure out how to move our population to a more balanced plant-centric diet. Behavioral sciences, changing in what you offer and how you offer it, a very easy way to affect that change. At the same time, we continue to work on actually new and alternative products. So we believe that a better alternative for meat is actually sustainable seafood. We believe that people should eat more produce. Imperfect produce is a better alternative. And there are new products as well. But let me give you some more detail around these 4 elements. So our team, our program is actually focused on specific sustainable seafood focus areas. We want to actually offer more low trophic species. We want to focus on the underrepresented species. We're thinking through responsible agriculture, and we're thinking through the whole fish utilization. Why? All these four focus areas reduce the overall environmental impact of eating seafood. It is about better utilizing what is available. And we believe that by being very specific about what it is we're asking our partners to do over here, the Bon Appetits, the Restaurant Associates, the Guggenheimers, we affect changes in what we offer, and based on what the changes in what we offer, our users will learn to appreciate and actually to taste great products that they might not necessarily eat normally. And by actually being exposed to it, they will acquire the appreciation for it. And subsequent to that, they might actually eat more of it at home or on the go as well. A second area from a product perspective that we're very focused on is imperfect, delicious produce. As you probably know, because of this notion of only perfect produce will show up in our grocery stores, so much of actually delicious produce that is actually imperfect ends up or remains on the field and not on our plate. And by really thinking through where can we use imperfect delicious produce, and by asking our partners to buy more of this, we can actually consume more of what is already grown, but as of today becomes part of the 40% of the overall food production that gets wasted. We are focusing on that, but it's a challenge. It's not a challenge of the availability, but it's a challenge of actually getting it from the field through your regular distribution channels to ultimately our sites. A third product that we've been very focused on is what you see over here. So what do you think you're seeing over here? It is a coffee berry, and we're using obviously the coffee beans for great coffee. But what has happened actually, the pulp is a byproduct that so far is not being used. But what if? What if you would actually use that pulp as a byproduct and you turn it into flour? So there's a company out there called Coffee Flour that is actually turning the pulp into flour, and we're now using coffee flour for a variety of products, first and foremost in the US, and we're now going to roll it out next to our sites around the world. Another company that we work with is Iterate, which is a company out of San Francisco, which is looking at how they can use waste or byproducts, products left on the field not being used, and actually turn that into very savory snacks. It is actually thinking through what is already being produced that is wasted as of today. How can you turn that into actually great new products that are can be consumed by whether it's our users, the Googlers, or by traditional consumers? Another area we're very focused on is actually tracking food waste, and obviously subsequent to that, reducing waste in our kitchens. We work with LeanPath in tracking waste in our kitchens in the US and a select number of international sites. And I really believe that two things happen as a result of that. The first one is the Hawthorne effect. By just spending ongoing time and focus on this, it becomes clear for operators that actually food waste reduction is important to us, and therefore it becomes important to them, and things will change. And secondly, based on the technology and the data provided through LeanPath, we actually have clearer insight in which specific parts of our production system we have opportunities. And desired outcome, a reduction of the food waste in our kitchens. At the same time, just based on how we're set up, there's always food left at the end of the day. So we're working with different organizations around the world to see what we can do with food left over and how we can actually transfer that from our sites to whether these will be organizations like Feeding America, where it can be used for the different food kitchens around the nation or around the world. The key takeaways. There are so many things that we can do, And depending on whether you're a consumer or whether you're a producer and a partner or an element in the overall food production chain, there are so many things you can do today in order to safeguard having enough food available for the 9 billion people by 2050. It doesn't require a lot of new research. It doesn't require a lot of broader cooperation. There are things that you and I, both as a consumer and as a producer, can do today. And it goes back to one of the core beliefs of our program, our team, is that act today and truly believe that you can make a much broader impact than at times you might give yourself credit for. The second one I believe strongly in is you can create as well as build upon the existing opportunities. We don't have to wait for the perfect solution, and done is better than perfect. If you think about some of the examples that you shared with you, imperfect delicious produce or coffee flour or the products developed by the company Iterate, it is not perfect yet, but at least we're making progress and we're learning as we go along. The third one is I absolutely believe there's such a strong opportunity to collaborate more with different partners. Even if we ultimately might disagree about specific elements or what needs to get done or not, I really believe that so many organizations in the food space agree on the first 60 or 70% of what needs to get done. Let's work on that together first, and by the time we achieve 70% of the broader goals, then let's agree to then go our separate ways to focus on the remaining 30% and where we have our differences. But let's not waste our time and the opportunities today to argue about the remaining 30% if we already agree on the first 70%. I believe as well is that all of us have an opportunity to push ourselves and those who we serve to a more balanced plant-centric diet today. And this is not about more meatless Mondays. This is not about taking the meat away, but it's about actually thinking through the better alternatives. Which cuisine types actually have meat as a condiment? If you think about the Indian cuisines, if you think about the cuisines in South Asia, think about Latin American cuisines, meat is not at the center of the plate in the way it is in the United States. By making the alternative more desirable, just as tasty, you can affect change. And then last but not least, I truly believe that small steps do matter. Don't get paralyzed by just the complexity or the breadth of what is ahead of us. Start doing one step today and the world will be a better place tomorrow. Last but not least, Larry Page, the founder of Google, has always said is that if you think that what you're going to be working on today is somewhat crazy, there is probably a reason for that. But believe as well as that if you think about those individuals who've created great new technologies or great solutions, they were told in the beginning they were insane. They did it anyway, and we know the outcome of their beliefs. So really believe in that what you're working on and that what you will be working on will make a difference for all of us. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Danielle for questions.
Thank you, Michael. This is Sarah Small. I'm Food Tank's Global Events Director, and I'll be moderating our Q&A session. Just a reminder to our listeners to continue to send in their questions using the chat box or on Twitter with #FoodTank, or email me, sarah@foodtank.com. So, Michael, thank you for a great presentation, and it's really exciting to hear how Google's food program is really creating change along all parts of the supply chain. We do have a lot of questions from listeners so far, so for the next 10 to 15 minutes, we'll go through as many as possible. So I'd like to start by asking you, our listener Cheryl says, this is an important discussion to be having, especially as the climate change talks are taking place in Paris. And she's curious, what is Google doing in Paris this December?
So Cheryl, a great question. And my simplistic answer is I don't really know. So I'm not dodging the question. I truly do not know which of our teams are there. I do know that Google as an organization, or Alphabet, the holding organization of Google, are very focused on the environmental issues. We're very focused on, for example, clean energy. We're doing a variety of different things in that, but I don't know specifically what role our organization is playing in Paris as we're speaking today.
Thank you, Michael. And the next question comes from Alex, and he or she asks, can you talk more about how Google's food program is investing in or supporting entrepreneurs and innovators? What does that process look like, and how can individuals get involved?
Great question, Alex. We love to work with entrepreneurs or innovators who are working in the spaces I just spoke about. So we're looking for partners who are thinking about alternative proteins, alternative production methods. Food for all of us. And the way we go about it actually varies very much from both country to country, as well as from product to product. So as a starting point, we support a variety of entrepreneurs directly by either giving them access to team members for feedback, insights, and general advice. A second option is that in a variety of offices, we buy their products and use their products and allow them two things. One, to sell their products to the different sites and therefore obviously to start earning money. And secondly, for them to get initial feedback from users about their products as well. The third one is we're working with a variety of our catering partners, Bon Appetits, the Guggenheimers, the Restaurant Associates, who are either supporting startups as well as part of their ecosystem, and then at times we support them by either bringing their products onto our sites as well, and or being willing to pay a premium in order to support an early startup early on. So the variety of different ways. The best way to reach us is basically by either working directly with a catering partner or by making contact with one of our food team members.
Thanks, Michael. The next question reads, so research says there's enough food to feed the world, but there are disparities and issues on distribution, including a massive problem with food waste. Our listener Robert asks, how is Google donating excess food?
So that's actually by partnering with local food banks and supporting organizations like Feeding America with their technology platform. So it's two different ways. So one is by supporting the broader organizations in their general organizational capabilities. And then secondly, by ensuring that our local catering partners have relationships with local food banks so that whatever is left over can be transferred to the local food bank.
Thanks, Michael. The next question comes from Marie, and she's wondering how can other companies learn from Google's food program and some of the programs that you've implemented within the cafes around the world as well?
So Marie, I think there are a variety of ways. So one way is that as we are working with our different catering partners, they become very aware of what we do, and subsequent to that, they share in general our programs with their other clients as well. The second one is different Google Food team members speak at a variety of external conferences about our program and what we're working on, so that will be a second way for us to disseminate our information. The third one is different Google Food team members are part of different industry organizations like the Society for Hospitality and Food Service Management, is where we basically liaise with other client partners at other organizations as well. The fourth one is different organizations and different individuals find either Google Food Team members around the world, or they reach out to our partners around the world to get more insights.
Great. And the next question asks, you talk about many different changes along all parts of the food supply chain. Which do you think needs to be addressed first?
That's a great question. I don't think I would be able to answer that with one simple answer, because I really believe that the issues are so different in the different parts of our world. But if I would have to give one answer, I would probably say it starts with all of us as individuals. We tend to basically transfer responsibility of answering the question to somebody else. And it's like, I will only do this if somebody else or another organization or a government will do this first. But the one you truly control is yourself. So you as an individual can make changes in what you eat and what you waste or not waste today. It doesn't require the alignment with anybody else. So therefore, I believe is that if you want to affect change today, you can start with yourself. And then the second part of the question would be, it depends of in which part of the world you're operating. Yeah, that will probably be my two broader answers.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you, Michael. And the next question comments, it was exciting to hear about the example of coffee flour and that partnership. Do you have another exciting success story of a partnership Google has made in regards to changing the food system?
I'm just actually thinking through what examples to give. So I can answer them, give a couple of examples. So I think that an easy one, but probably not a most anticipated, is the work we've done with the Cornell Food and Brand Lab. So Brian Wansink, as the leader of that organization, has been fabulous to work with and to really help us to become better at thinking through how to offer our food in what way and how to talk about it, because he strongly believes and promotes is that the context absolutely does matter. And I would say 3-4 years ago, we did not think that way, but actually by working closer with him, we have learned, we have made changes, and as a result of those changes, people are eating better and eating better products. That will be one. I think from a food innovation perspective, I think we are at the early stages of work being done by a variety of startups, especially in the Bay Area. But I would not be able to say as a result of X, we now have the following 3 or 4 products that are widely used in our ecosystem yet. But I think that is going to change probably within the next year or so. A slightly different way to answer the question is, I would love to hear from the audience if there are emerging products, like new products based on algae, on kelp, alternative meat proteins that are out there, because we are always very interested in actually exploring those options more, because I think it will be a part of our broader future. And going back to what I shared at the beginning of the presentation, our program is an ongoing work in progress. So I am the first one to say there's so much more we need to do, there's so much more we would like to do, and the more we can work with others, the quicker the changes we can actually make. So therefore, anybody on the webinars today with great suggestions, would love to learn more about them.
Great, and our users can either submit their suggestions using the box and also and I can share them with you as well. Time for a couple more questions. The next one says it's clear that from the images you showed and how you talked about putting the produce, making the produce more visible at Google's cafeterias and cafes, that Google is really invested in the health of their employees, and maybe you can comment on this, Michael, but how many thousands of people that might be. The question is, are there other companies that invest in the health of their employees similar to the way Google is?
I like to say absolutely yes, because I believe that there are many, many great companies out there that really care for their talent and their employees. So it's a very difficult question for me to answer, because I cannot really say, here are the 5 companies I personally believe have a very similar philosophy. What I can say is that from a food program perspective, we might be one of the more progressive organizations out there. And let me maybe speak a little bit more about what our intent is. So as we're making our food offerings available for free to our users, clearly not for free to Google as an organization, we believe we have a very broad responsibility to think through the impact of the food that we offer and subsequently that gets consumed on the health and well-being of a user. But it's about personal choice. So we believe that each individual has the right to make his or her own food choices. But we believe that the default choice should be a healthy choice. And we believe that there is so much still to be done in learning of how can you create and offer menu items that are just as delicious and tasty as what we might note today, but are ultimately healthier for the individual and healthier for the environment. And I think that, as I mentioned before, it's a work in progress. If you would visit one of our cafes today, in whatever office that might be, you will still find at times what I would call the goodies, because it's a combination of really thinking through, one, it's a work in progress, B, it is not about each and every individual dish or meal. It is about the much longer, broader dietary intake. So I like good food. I like at times to treat myself as well. And I believe as the program leader that we should not take away those treats, but it's up to the individual to use treats sparingly, and that we therefore have to offer all these different elements, the good as well as the treats, help individuals to be thoughtful and mindful about the choices that they make the healthiest choice the alternative, the best choice, and still make the other ones available, but just a little bit more challenging to find. You have to work a little harder on that. So, but it's not from a paternalistic perspective, so it's not where we determine for you of what you should eat and what you should not eat. But at the end of the day, somebody has to decide what to offer as a starting point. And we want to be very thoughtful about that. But it's a combination of, it is about the tastiness of the product, it's about the deliciousness, and it's about the overall health and well-being of the individual and the impact of our choices on the broader environment.
Great, thank you, Michael. And can you just end by letting our listeners know where they might be able to go online on Google's site or otherwise to learn more and start to pick up some more of these resources after the webinar?
So we don't have an external presence with a site where you really can learn more about all the different program elements. But if you actually Google food, you will find a variety of videos with about different presentations given by different team members over the last couple of years that speak more about different components of our program.
Great, thank you, Michael, and thank you so much for your time today. It was truly a pleasure to have you, and I wrote down one of your quotes that you said, we all can create more change than we realize and we give ourselves credit for. So I think that's really something to take away from your presentation as well. Thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in and for sending their questions. And just one announcement, our new and upcoming webinars are posted on foodtank.com, as well as this recording will be posted later today on foodtank.com as well. So thank you again to everyone and have a great rest of your day.